My name's Heath Franco. I'm an artist. I live in Sydney, live and work in Sydney, Australia. I studied painting at university, did a Bachelor of Fine Arts, specialising in painting and drawing, and got into video, making videos a bit after I graduated from university. The thing I love about video is the freedom that I'm allowed as a sort of solo maker. And what video does is enable you to incorporate a lot of different art forms. I guess the idea of maybe being a filmmaker was something I thought about when I was younger. Also, I just think video is like, for me, in my mind, it's the most powerful medium because it moves and it makes noises as well. The videos I make might not be that suitable for the traditional art gallery because they are noisy and annoying and kind of trying to grab your attention. It can get people's attention whether they want to give it attention or not. The title Life is Sexy actually came out many years, well, 2 or 3 years before I got around to making the work. It just popped in my head one day and I just thought it was so silly, and also plays into the links with this thing that America has of always making bold statements that applies to the entire world. Like, for instance, a simple one that I can't think of a better one right now is like the fact that the baseball is called the World Series, and yet it's only run within that one country. But the idea of like life is sexy, it's sort of like a sure thing, but the idea of sexiness is like something that changes with time. It's always fleeting, you know, usually for most people. So it's almost like impossible to really hold on to forever, and it's also such a flippant sort of word, I thought, and a word that sort of went out of fashion in the last few years. No one really says it, but when I was in my early 20s, it was something you would hear all the time, like to describe all kinds of things, not just people. The things that came into my mind for Life is Sexy were like sort of these tropical or beachside resort imagery, which again links back to the music video, the sort of leisure activities. What's promoted there through popular culture is this sort of idea of getting so rich that you can live a life of leisure every single day, and you can like flaunt your wealth to everyone and you get respect for that. Actually never seen such a place where just money alone is worshipped so much. Any type of person, including the current president, is respected for the fact that he's a billionaire, like, because he's got money. He's like better than most people in I'm generalizing here, but in a lot of people's minds maybe, because they're all aspiring to be rich one day. United States to me has always been like a fantasy world that I've only ever seen this sort of polished version of. That's what this trip was meant to do, and it did actually, was sort of confront, with this fantasy in mind, go there and confront the reality of what the real version of it. Not that I wanted to crush the fantasies that I had, and the hope that, you know, you have, that everyone who might move or visit to America, if in any sort of way to further their career, you know, the opportunities are pretty immense if you can crack it. Before and after the United States trip, I was able to do a brief mentorship, sort of internship thing with a music video director from New Zealand called Joel Kafali. So he's made some pretty high-end music videos actually for Lorde and for Katy Perry. I wanted to learn about how to achieve that. Not that I sort of even really attempted to get to that sort of level. I don't think I could by myself exactly, but I was interested to see how do you work with a crew. Again, didn't quite apply to this work, but I'm building towards the future. I feel like in a commercial sense, I feel like a music video is probably the closest thing to my work, more so than like a film, a short film or anything like that. So Joel seemed like a really perfect person to do that with, to learn from. So the reason I use costumes, I guess, is a way to get out of my own mind for a little while and I try and make things that are exciting to me. I want to use every possible thing at my disposal. So my body is one of those things that I have available. And because it's myself, I can do anything that I feel comfortable with that I wouldn't feel comfortable asking someone else to do. I can act in ways that I would never act as myself. You know, never, no way. Well, not in front of anybody, you know what I mean? And that's what they enable me to do. They're sort of like this undressing of my normal stuff and then, yeah, moving into another place mentally and physically that can bring about results that I didn't have in mind, didn't have planned. So I use nudity, and it is more confronting because it has more kind of sexual connotation than other videos that I've done before. But as well as that, there is still sort of a barrier between some of the most explicit stuff and the audience. I didn't want to put people off entirely from watching it, so there are methods that I've used with special effects to allow people to continue watching it without being totally aghast wanting to leave the room. Also, I guess the nudity in this work in particular is like thinking a lot about sort of pornography and how widespread it is and how kind of brutal it can be sometimes as well. And how that, while we're having a conversation about, you know, how feminism is so strong at the moment, and that's excellent. I'm so happy about that. But meanwhile, you've still got this sort of pornography, which is like underneath it, which is completely the opposite of that in a lot of ways. And that was something, I guess, going through my mind as well. So the next project I'm working on is for a show in November in Sydney at Alaska Projects. So that's the next big project I'm working on, and for that, at the moment, I've got in mind building a physical set to shoot in rather than using green screen, which is every other video I've done has been shot in two parts, you know, like a backdrop and the figure in the foreground. The next thing I want to move into is spending less time on the computer, compiling and editing, and more time thinking about things before I shoot it, which again is probably something that I got from working with Joel, to see that that's how he works. So that's what I want to do, and I'm thinking of having like these figures that are much more integrated with the background. In fact, they might even live inside the background. I don't know exactly how that'll happen yet, but in a way, then the set itself becomes like another character as well that will change, have different costumes on. So it'll remain as the same structure, but be redressed for different uses, for different videos. And yeah, so that's where I'm wanting to move into a bit more, getting more hands-on again, rather than sitting at the desk all the time.